I feel like after this video, I may need to implement a personal policy of banning myself from posting any more Napoli gameplay. I feel like this ship is all I'm talking about lately, and I suppose I made a video a week or maybe a week or two ago on the Napoli. I think that game was a Kraken, and mostly I was talking about the buff the Napoli received. Now that we've covered that, we can just sort of enjoy the gameplay here. Although I think this gameplay maybe poses an interesting question for the comments section to consider. In the year 2026, why bother playing a brawling battleship? Like the new Kelowna from the crafting station, or the Columbo, or the Schlieffen, or even classics like the GK, if anybody still uses that to brawl. Why do that when ships in the game exist like the Napoli, or the Michelangelo, or the Schroeder? All of these are brawling secondary cruisers that, in some ways, can get the job done more easily than a battleship. Now, obviously, they have less HP relative to the battleship class, and they have less armor. But what they do have going for them is much better maneuverability than a battleship and much better concealment. And I think that second one is especially crucial. I know probably a lot of people are sick about how much I talk about concealment, but it is really one of the foundations on which all balance in this game rests. And in order to be damaged or sunk in this game, you generally have to be spotted, unless, of course, you get caught by some torpedoes that a destroyer launched in your direction and you didn't really realize. I suppose you don't have to be spotted for that, but to be damaged by somebody's main battery guns and sunk that way, which is probably the way most people get sunk, you do. And so if you are a concealed cruiser with an excellent armor scheme like the Napoli, you can get closer to the action much easier. If you're not spotted on the way in, that means you're not going to be damaged on the way in, which also means you'll conserve what you might consider your playmaking currency. The more HP you have, the more risks you can take, and the more aggressive you can be. So it's important to deploy that HP and lose it when it benefits you and your team. And if you have good concealment, you can more easily control when and where you do that. But ultimately, for the best concealment, you probably need a tanky cruiser like this. And I think I would rather play Napoli than even the Columbo, or the Kelowna, or any other brawling battleship you can think of. Same goes probably for the Michelangelo and Schroeder. I just don't think any battleship can quite do what they can do and be as satisfying. Now, of course, we're here playing the Charlie flank, and even something as tanky and powerful as the Napoli, which at this point may be a little bit overtuned and in need of a nerf. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments section. I hate to say that perhaps this ship needs a nerf, but it does seem really, really strong, perhaps too strong, and it's incredibly fun to play. Even with a nerf, it probably still would be. Anyway, this capture circle's occupied by a lot of reds. We've got Sovietsky Soyuz pushing in here. We've got this Michelangelo. We've got another Michelangelo out there. I think there's a BA Montana in the distance, and the enemy destroyer, at least the one that's still floating, was last spotted in this location. So all of this says don't push, especially when the Sovietsky Soyuz and I suppose this Michelangelo are at least half pushing into us. Looks like Michelangelo's going to kite away, but Sovietsky Soyuz certainly is pushing in. And we've got about 3 battleships somewhere behind us, which I believe are all concentrating fire on the Soyuz. As our secondaries hammer him, they continue to hit Michelangelo too on the way out. And Michelangelo probably thinks his secondaries are pretty potent, but I don't think they're as accurate as the Napoli's secondaries. I seriously don't think there's any secondaries in the game that are this accurate. It's a good thing this doesn't have the enhanced secondary targeting consumable too. I suppose that's broken now, but once they fix that, imagine if the Napoli had it. Things would be chaos. I don't think you'd be able to withstand the withering hail of these sap secondaries. Anyway, we get our first of 5 fists in the battle as Sovietsky Soyuz goes down to one of the battleships, and we're at 90,000 damage in about the first 5 minutes with 237 secondary hits. Just goes to show you how accurate these things are. There's the enemy destroyer, which I believe is a Kleber, and he is busy leaving the capture circle to go for Bravo. So that's good news. Knowing that it's the Kleber, we know that he doesn't have long range torpedoes, so he's not going to be able to saturate the waters with those. And the main thing to worry about at this point, then, would be the BA Montana, which just became spotted from, I suppose, shooting at these battleships here, and also the two Michelangelos. Well, here comes BA Montana, and of course, we are concealed enough that he doesn't spot us on our approach. We'll put some torpedoes in the water from the port side of the ship, and then we'll shoot. We'll use this island here to make sure we don't get spotted, so maybe we can get some free damage off that guy. Doesn't work out so well, couple ricochets there. No real damage to speak of, but we'll be able to turn the ship and get the torpedoes on the starboard side in the water as well. I think Michelangelo was just spotted behind this rock here too, so we'll probably have to be wary. And of course, Montana gets vision of us as we turn the corner, but I think we timed this well enough where he's focused on our battleship teammates that he's not actually going to shoot us. His guns are not aimed in this direction, and he takes a massive hit from one of our teammates. We're expecting him to turn in an angle to mitigate the effectiveness of our AP in those battleships, so we've chambered the HE in preparation for that, especially if he's going to be taking any of these torpedoes and they cause floods. Fires will be helpful to go along with that. And of course, Montana continues to show broadside, which means the secondaries are going to be able to chew through his armor plating pretty easily. And we get a torpedo. What is that, the third torpedo of this game? Who knew these Italian sea mines were so useful? And once again, somebody else is able to secure the kill on BA Montana, which is fine. Gives us a second fist and 136,000 damage. And maybe now that the two biggest threats in the form of Soyuz and Montana have been dispatched from this flank, maybe now we can actually get into this capture circle and take it, since only the Michelangelos really stand in our way. There are a couple battleships left alive on the red team, but they're on the other side of the map, so they can't really harm us. And we know that if we do push in, we're not going to have to worry about angling against battleship guns, just Michelangelo guns, which are scary in and of themselves, but of course the Michelangelos have to give a lot of broadside to get all those guns on target, so they do tend to use their secondaries as the main battery armament. The only bad thing, I suppose I could say about the Napoli, is what you see here from this salvo. Broadside Michelangelo, and what is that, 2 overpens? Now, maybe that was my aim being a little bit off there, or maybe it was just RNG deciding that this Michelangelo needed to be blessed from having his citadel tapped and sent back to port so he could continue to enjoy his Brawling cruiser for at least a short time. I don't know what that was, but sometimes I suppose these main battery guns are a little bit inconsistent, particularly when you're using the battleship commander Azerlane Vittorio Veneto and you've got nothing spec'd into the main battery guns whatsoever because you've given up all the commander skills to spec into the incredible secondaries. Of course, that's what we've done, and I suppose we shouldn't expect anything more. Anyway, Michelangelo manages to get away for the moment, relatively unscathed, but he's being pursued by whatever this battleship is. I think Rhode Island, because he's using radar. So I don't think that Michelangelo is going to be floating for too much longer. But here we find ourselves in potentially a bit of a pickle. There's Kleber, so we don't want to continue forward too quickly. I believe he's got 6 km torpedo range, and we're about 2.4 km away from that. So he could easily launch them, and we could be pushing into them. That is why we'll come to a stop here, but we are still spotted, I think just due to the firing penalty from the main battery guns. BA, or not BA, the Rhode Island took out the kiting Michelangelo, so we don't have to worry about him. We do have to worry about the Yamato and that other Michelangelo right there. To be honest with you, I don't know why we shot at that guy when he was turning away and angling. Didn't get a lot of damage out of it, just continued to extend the firing penalty. And so we're going to use our smoke to make sure that we're not going to continue to be shot by these Yamatos. Even as tanky as the Napoli is, well, we don't want to take too many chances against the Yamato in particular. Not against something like that that can overmatch at least the bow portion of the armor scheme. And actually, I think the Yamato can even overmatch the upper belt armor on Napoli because it's only 30 millimeters, if I remember correctly. The belt, though, would protect us from the citadels against Yamato's guns, so there is that. And we use the smoke screen to just get behind this island here, which I think is a bit more of a preferable position, especially if this Kleber wants to try anything funny. He's still somewhere behind the island as we get a fist on the Victoria. We just don't quite know where. And once again, we see our old friend, the Michelangelo, who is broadside, and this time, will the main battery guns cooperate? Michelangelo should be about one of the easiest things to Citadel in the entire game, but I guess nobody gave our gunners that memo because once again, the results are disappointing. And once again, the Italian sea mines find their mark against the enemy Yamato. This is a lot of torpedo hits, I feel like, for the Napoli, especially since none of them came from point-blank range in a brawling scenario. Speaking of torps, oh my god, there are the Michelangelos, and those hurt. But they run out of juice. He's only got, 8 km range? We have something like 13. He can't compete with that. And I think he's going to try his luck again and turn broadside, just like his friend earlier did. But eventually their luck's gonna run out, right? Yeah, there it goes. There's 2 citadels. Like I said, this should be one of the easiest cruisers in the game, 2 citadel. And finally, the game allows for it. So he goes down as our first kill of the game, actually, to go along with our 4 fists. Somebody takes out the Kleber, which means there's absolutely nothing now in terms of a torpedo threat to prevent us from pushing. It's just Yamato and Worcester left. And all we really have to worry about is the main battery guns from the Yamato and getting into a position where the Worcester can farm us for a prolonged period of time. Either way, that could send us back to port, but I don't think it's going to happen. We've got vision on the Yamato, courtesy of this friendly destroyer, or maybe this friendly battleship behind us actually is the one spotting. Anyway, Yamato is somewhat broadside to us, so we can comfortably lob these AP shells over the island and deal some at least respectable damage to him. Somehow our last remaining destroyer goes down. I don't really know how he was spotted. Maybe the Worcester caught him in radar, but anyway, somebody gets a Kraken unleashed on our team, the Conqueror. I wonder if our getting this helping hand facilitated him getting that Kraken. I don't know, maybe he's the one that secured all the kills for all the damage we've done. And it's 201,000 so far, but there is one fairly healthy cruiser still left alive. And I don't think the Worcester really stands a chance against the Napoli, unless it's a scenario where it's not an even 1v1, which this wouldn't be, and unless the Worcester has enough time to farm off the remaining 16,000 HP, which he might in some other circumstances, but in this one, I don't think so. He's being pursued by that Rhode Island again, who, honestly, I thought he was toast on that flank back there, but I guess he's still alive, and he's keeping vision on the Worcester. Once again, a bunch of overpens from the Napoli's main battery guns at a broadside cruiser, but once again, you can only get lucky for so long. The Worcester has a citadel, I know it does, and we can find it. There we go, 2 kills, 224,000 damage done, along with 5 fists, and the helping hand medal. So a pretty good result in the Napoli with a lot of damage, and a lot of brawling and secondary action. 473 hits, and still, in spite of that, we managed to score the top XP, just above the Conqueror with the Kraken, even though the secondaries net us almost no XP. If this damage didn't come from the secondaries, that probably would have been like 3, maybe even 4K again. Who knows? But I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of the Napoli, and the idea that brawling cruisers are perhaps better to play than brawling battleships in general. And give the video a thumbs up, consider subscribing. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.